Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Economy, End-to-End Visibility for Your Supply Chain, presented by DSI and Hand USA. Our speakers today are Bob Carver, Vice President of Cloud Inventory Solutions at DSI, and Amanda Pensack, Marketing Director at Hand USA. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. All attendees' phone lines have been muted. If you have a question for us, please use the Q&A box in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We'll do our best to address all questions at the end of the webinar. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Over to you, Bob.
Thanks, Morgan. Hi, I'm Bob Carver. I'm the Vice President of Cloud Inventory Solutions at DSI. I'll be conducting a major portion of the webinar here today discussing the digital economy, its impact on the end-to-end visibility in your supply chain, tips and pointers, things you got to look at, problems that you're going to see in the industries today, solutions that you might see to those, and where I think the future is going. And with that, I'll turn it over to Amanda for a quick introduction on her end.
Hi, my name is Amanda Pensack, and I am the Marketing Director here at Hand USA. I'm going to be giving a quick overview about Hand USA, who we are, what we do, and about our partnership with DSI towards the end of the webinar, and I'm looking forward to speaking more then. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Amanda. So let's get started. Just a quick overview of the agenda that we're going to dive into today. I'll just do a little bit of an introduction as to where we're positioning exactly what we want to talk to today in regards to an overview on the supply chain and the digital economy. After that, we'll kind of dive into the complexities of the future supply chain. What are the areas that I see as critical to both your success as well as maybe the pitfalls and roadblocks that you ought to be looking at as you look at where the supply chain is going and how your supply chain needs to evolve. We'll do a little bit of a definition of some of the problems that we see out there today, where we see the solutions to those problems going. And then kind of at the end, maybe beginning all over again, where do you start? Once you've figured out exactly what you want to do, once you've engaged yourself in the digital transformation, exactly what is it that you ought to be focused on and where should you start to apply your resources, your company finances, and the design and futures of your supply chain mapping strategies as you go forward. So from an overview standpoint, I'll call this the sort of pre-iPhone area. I'll use retail as an example, but really in my mind, regardless of the industry that you're in, pretty much everything that we'll discuss today has overarching applicability to just about any vertical out there in the marketplace. I like to use retail as a specific vertical to address it to, because no matter what industry you're in, chances are you've been a retail customer, a retail consumer. And if you look back before the advent of the smartphone, before Apple decided to change that little device that we all hold in our hands on a daily basis, the experience from a customer standpoint when it came to sales was primarily a fairly manual type of a process. There was no way to look at the store beforehand before you got there to see what kind of inventory they had on hand. You may come in, they may not have exactly what you were looking for in stock. So they'll tell you that they'll order it for you, or it'll come in maybe in a week or two, maybe it's on the next shipment. We don't get shipments except for once a month. But that product will eventually come back in stock, and typically the consumer reaction to a situation like that was thanks but no thanks. Unless they really wanted that particular item, they tended to go look for it somewhere else. They may go to another store within the same retail chain and purchase the dress at that store, or perhaps they might go to a competitor. So in the world of other verticals, you're looking at lost sales, you're looking at lost revenue, you're looking at lost customers. You may lose that customer forever. Customer retention was not all the best back in those days. And as we've moved forward into the new age, you're really looking at a digitally connected customer. These customers are able to look at inventory in a process and on a device in an area never seen before. The ability to look at the inventory at a store, the inventory at a distribution center, go out and do a product locator, a type of lookup to actually find the nearest place that particular inventory may be in stock based upon the geolocation I'm getting from my phone. So your current customers are digitally connected. They're very experienced. They're online. They're utilizing tools that have only been in place for less than a decade to do some fairly significant inventory lookups, to look at product lookups, and whether that's retail or whether that's an industrial vertical, whether it's manufacturing, it's automotive, that story spans the gamut, and you've got to be involved in expecting to service your customer at a high level, to give them a persona-based interaction that they like to use, that's easy to use, and that is readily available on a device that they're bringing to the task. So the advent of the whole BYOD strategy, to bring your own device, I think is part of the entire transformation that we're going through right now. Even in a lot of the companies that we do business with nowadays, we're seeing a fairly significant number of companies that are requiring users, employees, to actually bring their own devices to be the device that's used to interact with the supply chain. So it's changed. It's definitely changed. So what are the complexities of that future supply chain as we look at where we're going? What do you need to address? What do you need to look at? I'm going to break it down into 4 key areas that I think that you need to focus on when you're looking at the end-to-end supply chain. First is that connected customer. You're going to have to give them a customer's number one attitude and keep them very happy. There's a global impact to everything that you're doing within your supply chain, and there's a global impact on everything that you do in your supply chain. Digitalization is taking over the market. We've seen the words out there a lot, and I think we even have it further on in the slides here of digital transformation. In my mind, as I go forward, I've begun to drop the word transformation from a lot of the vernacular that we use, because I think we've transformed. The digital economy is here. It's here to stay. The question is at what level do you want to play in that digital economy, and how does digitalization actually apply to you in that case? And then mobile apps. Mobile apps are making everything that we're doing much more complex, but it's also making it easier for that end consumer to have a persona-based experience, an easy experience with you. And mobile apps are readily available from third parties at no cost. So it's really transforming the way that both B2C and B2C businesses interact with each other on a daily basis. So if you look at that customer, what are the complexities about that customer that are really driving the future supply chain? What do you have to be aware of? What have you got to watch out for? The customer is always right. Customer is number one. I don't think that's really changed probably in the last 40 or 50 years in the sales world. Customer is always right. But the difference here now is that customer is expecting a consistent experience, a consistency of experience across any interaction with you as a company. So you've got to be able to be online with them 100% of the time. I think as an industry in logistics and distribution and supply chain, we ought to be dropping the word offline from our vocabulary. Nobody works in an offline mode anymore. You might have capabilities to have an application that works offline because you don't have Wi-Fi or mobile signal in the area that application might be being used. But when you're interacting with your consumer, it's online. Gone are the days of paper processing and emails and faxes and a lot of interactions with the customer, maybe be just the phone. The primary point of interaction in probably about 65% of all transactions with an end business customer now is electronic and digital, and it's moving swiftly to the point where about 100% of all customer experiences will be online by the end of this decade. That experience is key. That experience also has to be platform agnostic. Users are now accustomed to being able to utilize an application on any device that they want to. So it may be their HTML5 desktop screen at work. It could be their iPhone at home. It could be a rugged Windows mobile terminal within the distribution center. That experience has got to be consistent across all platforms, and those consumers are adept at using multiple different platforms. They expect a multi-channel experience regardless of location, so your consumers are looking at you to be able to tell them exactly where inventory is at any point in time within the supply chain, at what location, if it's in transit, what might be in transit. They have and expect a significant amount of visibility into the supply chain that you've never seen before. And we know the 800-pound gorilla that's out there, Amazon, is really driving, I think, a lot of that. They want an Amazon-like experience. I don't know if anybody read up on the latest Amazon announcement from last week, but that was the front door lock that you can enable from your app with a camera that you can put inside of your home. That'll become part of the Prime packages, where now when you're having a package delivered to your house, you can actually unlock the door for the delivery person and watch them put it in your hallway and shut the door and lock it back up. So it's permeating every part of our lives and a big part of all the industries within logistics and distribution. The global impact, I think, is something that can't be ignored. When you look at the emerging 7 and the global 7 countries that are out there right now, right around the midterm of this century, the 3 biggest economies in the world are probably going to be China, the United States, and in a very close third, one that a lot of people don't think about, and that's Indonesia. The impact of that, I don't think can be minimized to anybody that's in a global industry right now. With the population shift and the purchasing power shift that you see based upon the growth in emerging countries, there's a really good likelihood that a good chunk of the manufacturing and definitely the distribution network that's in place right now will probably be somewhat obsolete in 25 to 30 years and will have to be completely remapped and reevaluated. A lot of folks haven't thought about having large regional distribution centers in a country like Indonesia over in Southeast Asia, but you do need to look at doing that. And the advent of urban warehousing and this co-located inventory that's closer to the consumer that allows for same-day deliveries within necessarily hours of placing an order within the environment that you're in has driven a huge growth in distribution in densely populated urban areas. I think it was Gartner that was mentioning to me not too long ago in the conversation we had with one of their analysts that one of the biggest growth areas they see in distribution and warehouses right now is companies that are renting entire floors of skyscrapers in Singapore for urban warehouse distribution operations located in the cities of that country. So things have really changed, and your distribution network is going to be impacted. Your entire supply chain networks can be impacted, and the location of all those is probably going to begin shifting fairly radically as the global impact continues to extend itself into our businesses. Again, digitalization. We've talked about the customers being online 100% of the time, probably within the next 5 years. They're expecting to have a very personalized experience. You see it now in the mobile apps that you get on your smartphone. They're becoming more and more configurable, more and more adaptable by yourself to a persona that you create and feel comfortable using and working in. But the other thing that's going to happen in the overall thrust forward in digitalization is, I think, the better use of all the data that's been captured over all these years. We all, as consumers, have been tracked for quite some time by many large companies out there, and there's terabytes and terabytes of data out there that they're using internally to make a determination on where they're staging distribution product, inventory product locations, where their retail stores or brick and mortars might be located, where they need some logistics hubs or delivery outlets to be positioned. But as they gather that data, one thing that's happening is that consumers are beginning to demand more and more capability on their end for all the data that they've exposed to those large companies going forward. So I think you're going to see the use of data turn around fairly significantly in how industry and the supply chain is approaching you, and how your visibility into what's going on within the end-to-end supply chain, both in your company and for your consumer, gets transformed based upon the data that you've been collecting all these times. And I think the consumers are going to demand that data be used wisely and for their benefit. One of the other things that's going to cause a bit of a problem, I think, in that going forward is that the more data that begins to get exposed and used in industry, the more we're going to begin to see the ability for potential data risks and breaches and hacking capabilities. Something like 80%, I think, of all the smartphones on the market right now are hackable. So with that data being exposed, the CIOs in your organizations are going to have to begin thinking significantly about upgrading security capabilities in the platforms that they push out to the end users, because that data has got to be well protected, and things like Experion and some of the other things we've seen lately just can't happen anymore. And then mobile apps. Mobile apps really are changing the way that you interact with the customer. I know a lot of folks like to use the term Uberization when they talk about mobile applications, but this really has become an on-demand and sharing economy, and a lot of that is through the mobile applications that have been deployed out to the marketplace. The unique thing about that is that it's created this sort of on-demand expectation within the consumer that a lot of folks aren't ready for. Kind of a 24/7, always ready attitude that your company's got to take to be able to maintain that customer, maintain the happiness of that customer, maintain the flow within your supply chain, and meet the expectations of the end user that's reaching out to you for a purchase or for shipment too. The other thing that it's really done here too is driven a collaborative attitude within the logistics supply chain industry that really hasn't been seen quite before. You're seeing everything from 3PLs sharing technology to companies sharing technology. If you just think about just the very fact of pretty much every app that you utilize on a smartphone right now, you probably haven't paid for, but you sort of have an ownership of that software and the ability to use that software freely without interference. Is a big change in the way that we are approaching and dealing with our consumers in this end-to-end supply chain. The capability of owning an app, utilizing an app, configuring an app, but actually never paying for it is a sharing technology and process that's growing across the board to the point where you're now seeing things like co-located companies and distribution centers, a number of different companies drop shipping for other companies that might have been competitors in the past. I think that's going to continue to move forward. Those shared resources, those kind of no-cost resources, non-owned resources, whether it be facilities or employees, whether it be technology, is something that's going to continue to move the marketplace forward and continue to make it more competitive. The other thing that we're seeing as well too is kind of a talent share, and McKinsey did a study not too long ago that said about 55% of all full-time employees in the workforce by 2020 won't necessarily be putting 40 hours of work in for a particular company, but will be shared resources amongst companies. So I think that's going to also cause a bit of an uptick in a different way that HR and labor really need to interact in the supply chain as it affects the overall consumer in this end-to-end capability that you're providing going forward. So we look at some of the problems of today and some of the solutions that we think we're going to see in the future. I think Einstein said it pretty well not years ago that we can't solve our problems using the same thinking we used to when we created them. It's the old definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting the result to change. This is the time to really think out of the box. Supply chains have become very creative. They've become very dynamic. They're much more adaptive. It's not unusual to see that business processes can not only change on a fairly regular basis, that change could actually happen daily. We've got a number of customers that we deal with where their applications, their business flows, the logic that they utilize to push the workflow through the supply chain is configurable to the point where they can react and change basically on a dime. And I think the supply chain is demanding that, the consumers are demanding that, and your supply chain is going to have to be able to fit into that type of a situation. Leading companies really are utilizing supply chain technology to redesign their operating models, how they're going to market, and probably the bottom line on that is by utilizing a digital strategy and a digital technology within your supply chain, you're going to look at better processes, you're going to look at overall better cash flow, your margins are going to be higher, your productivity is going to be higher. There really is a demand for the supply chains to work more efficiently, to be more interoperative and focused. And the only way to grow and generate significant revenue and margins, I believe, on the overall supply chain is to leverage this digital technology, to leverage the digital economy to move your products and your company forward. So what's really happening is a convergence of the supply chain. The four walls of the warehouse are no longer the boundaries of a warehouse. Warehouses out there now are virtual. They're urban. They're located in back stock rooms of brick and mortar stores. They're trunk stocks in a healthcare rep's implant, like a Johnson & Johnson implant healthcare sales rep, and the trunk stock that they're carrying. The difference is that by converging it all, we're tracking it all at every point, whether it be within the distribution center or the manufacturing facility, whether it be out in the service areas or out in retail. The capability to monitor and determine where inventory is within the supply chain and have that end-to-end visibility is something that the convergence is really pushing forward. We've got a customer that we're talking to right now that actually deals with agricultural products, and a good chunk of their salespeople are farmers located throughout the United States. They have a significant chunk of their inventory co-located at these farms that the farmers are actually distributing to their local brethren in the agricultural community, and they've had absolutely no visibility of that product for forever, essentially, and are now utilizing digital technologies and putting an app in the hand of the farmer so that he can actually track that inventory within his own, maybe 500 square foot area of a barn, but be able to report back to that corporate company, what he's sold, what he's distributed, what he might be returning, what replenishment stock he may require, rather than having to go back and maybe go, down to the coffee shop in the local town and hook up to an old modem or send off an email or a fax to the distributor. Everything's going to be done online through a mobile device. So the supply chain has converged, and you've got to be prepared for that. The other thing that's really happening is just the connected capabilities of a lot of the products out here. I thought the drone delivering the package would be a fairly timely picture. It's probably old and ancient right now in a lot of people's minds. We're not quite there yet, but it's coming. And with some of the regulations that President Trump just recently signed, it's going to allow companies like Amazon to begin testing that at a fairly high level. But more and more things are connected to this day and age. It's got a global impact. IoT is a reality. Where it extends to and how you utilize that is really up to you, but the capability to have a fairly significant business impact, to be a disruptive force within your industry, to transform your supply chain and to gather all that data, to utilize that data, and to have a fairly effective approach to how you take things to market, whether it be at the very beginning of the supply chain or at the very end consumer's hands. The technology's out there now. Everybody's connecting now. You'll want to be on board with that strategy. The organization of the future is going to change fairly significantly as well, too. I've mentioned talent. Because we have this shared talent sort of strategy going on, or at least emerging within the industry, I think human resources departments are going to have to be much more knowledgeable, limber, creative in how they're sourcing employees and bringing employees to the workplace. For those of you that are involved in distribution, you've known it's been a struggle for quite some time to hire employees that can effectively work utilizing today's technology. They do need a lot of things to be mapped out for them fairly straightforward and repetitive, so that there's not a lot of intelligence or creativity required in executing their jobs. It becomes fairly repetitive. But those employees are hard to find. They're not necessarily easy to find. And we're demanding, I think, a more and more intelligent workforce within the supply chain. So the knowledge networks portion of this, I think, applies as well, too. In order to build out a strategy for your supply chain that's going to be effective and is really going to have a lasting impact on your corporation, the need for highly skilled supply chain individuals is going to be part of your overall strategy. And so recruiting and maintaining supply chain individuals is going to be rather key. I think a lot of us have seen the advent of some fairly significant operations and supply chain management degree tracks at a lot of the major colleges here in the United States. There's a lot of logistics supply chain centers of excellence that have opened up at universities. I know I actually participated in the creation of one at Marquette University. The base of employees out there for where the supply chain is going and how it's converged and stretched itself beyond these kind of four walls physical plants is going to require resources basically globally around the world for an effective global company. And we're going to have to build up that capability, those knowledgeable individuals within our organizations. And then the last is the augmented workforce. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to understand the impact that robotics may have on the supply chain right now, whether it be things like the Amazon robots, the old Kiva system robots, and the bringing goods to man type situations within a distribution center, or even the use of things like some of the vision systems like the Google Glass clones that have come out that actually direct people to picking locations based upon where they're looking. The use of RFID in positive location of product within the warehouse. I saw a couple of prototype systems out there now where they're actually using drones outfitted with RFID readers that will actually fly up and down the aisles and do real-time inventory checks within the distribution center. There's a lot of things happening out there that are going to change. Right now, conventional wisdom says that about every 140 or so workers can be replaced by about 9 robots. So you're going to see a shift in where people are working within the distribution center. I still think we're going to need a lot of labor, but everything from the robotic picking all the way out to UPS talking about their driverless trucks and some of the other technologies that are out there, the augmented workforce is kind of automated section of the workforce that we utilize to affect our supply chain across the board is going to continue to grow. So I think it's good for you to kind of just sit back and take a look at where you are in the maturity level and kind of the view of where your supply chain's going. I think that anybody that has kind of has siloed goals or just really just functional experience is still kind of on the inside looking out. Those companies aren't leading companies within the supply chain. They're in that kind of pre-digital mode. We still go to a lot of firms when we get out there that don't have any type of barcoding technology or location-based technology within their distribution centers and are picking on paper. And some of them are fairly large firms. They're on the outside looking in. They're not going to last very long if they don't pick up their digital strategy. And then those that have really begun to start integrating their supply chain, all the different facets of their supply chain, all the different systems of their supply chain, those that have really extended into a demand-driven type of a model that are now being driven by the customer versus being driven internally by schedule, and those that have created some type of value within their network, have created an entire ecosystem that they're operating in, really are the ones that are mature and are outside looking in at the ones that still don't quite get it. So where do you start? I've thrown a lot of things at you. We've talked a lot about the end-to-end kind of supply chain visibility and where I think it's going and some of the challenges I think that you'll hit. If you've got to think about places where to start, these are the 5 areas that I think you really need to begin to look at. The first is just preparation, and that is for the changes that you're going to see in the global marketplace and the impact of the emerging markets. If you want to be a global company, you can't ignore the fact that the population growth is outside of our traditional North American circles, and even EMEA, the Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, the emergence of the supply chains over there, and the sheer population group over there is driving both that purchasing power and that consumer count really overseas at this point in time. Get to know what you don't know, and really learn that the digital economy and the connected customer are going to require you to fulfill from a vastly greater amount of locations than you do now. Just look at, I hate to keep bringing them up, but just look at Amazon. I mean, pretty much every major city in the United States, if you're a Prime member and you order a high-velocity type product, it's coming to your hands next day. It wasn't that long ago that it was a week before you'd ever get your hands on that. A lot of times, I remember in my past dealing with a couple of companies where they'd get an order in and they couldn't pick that order for 5 to 6 days. I recently ordered a couple products off by Amazon for delivery to my house, and I got your order has been shipped notification probably within 20 minutes of my having ordered the product. So they're changing the way that consumers are driven, both in their personal lives as well as their business lives. They're extending their capabilities into B2B type areas as well too, and they're going to be a big fulfiller of distribution requirements within the business industry, the B2B industry as well too. So the only way you're going to do that is with more and more locations. We've talked about urban warehousing. It's happening, and you've got to look at that. We kind of went back to the hub and spoke of fairly centralized warehousing not too long ago, and it really looks to me like that is going away quickly back into a heavily decentralized focus on where product is located. So you're going to have to be nimbler, you're going to have to be smarter, you're going to have to be a lot more intelligent. You're not going to want to carry more inventory to be able to do that, so you're going to have to be very smart about where that inventory is placed. Launch an effort within your company. Digitalization and mobile applications are going to differentiate you from your competition, and you've got to use those to create a very personalized experience for your consumer as you're dealing with them on a day-to-day basis. You've got to become a company that's going to seek to hire skilled supply chain technologists. That's going to allow you to grow. You're going to have to execute, and you're going to have to really sit back and look at world-class supply chain practices, figure out where the gaps are within your organization, and then go ahead and embrace those world-class supply chain practices and implement them at your company. And then you really need to think about what the impact of this vastly increased number of fulfillment locations is going to have on your allocation and your replenishment strategies. As I mentioned, you're going to have to be a lot smarter about where you're locating product. Inventory carrying cost is still a king, pretty much regardless of what industry you're in. And the ability to reduce the amount of inventory that you've got on hand and yet still fulfill these orders with this persona-based experience rapidly to a customer who's expecting to be able to see everything that's going on 100% of the time and where all your product is located is really going to drive you to have to relook at all those strategies. And then if I just talk really quickly on some other areas and where to start, if you're looking at digitalization, what do you need to do? The top 5 digital technologies that have been implemented so far, one is cloud computing. We, as a company, have really embraced the cloud. More and more companies are moving to the cloud. The ability to get rid of on-premise installations to service your customer, no matter where they're located, based off a cloud-based application or cloud-based system, is really trending. About 85% of all the companies that are leveraging digitalization have done some type of cloud computing. We've talked about connected sensors in the plants, warehouse, and distribution centers, whether that be like drone technologies with RFID, but any type of sensors that allow you to monitor and determine and track performance of inventory within those facilities. About 65% of all companies that are leveraging digitalization have done that. In products, connected sensors in products, whether it be an RFID chip or other, about 59% of all companies have done that. And then on the bottom end, kind of the too low but rapidly advancing digital technologies that have been leveraged are 3D printing, and about 40% of all the companies that are out there with a digitalization strategy, and then about 34% of all companies have implemented some type of advanced data analytics tool in their marketplace. We're seeing more and more requests for analytics tools in our products. Used to be primarily just historical analytics, looking at performance within the supply chain, but now actually with the advent of digitalization, a lot of the analytics that are requested also include performance of the applications, performance of the particular apps that you've developed, that you've deployed out to customers, tracking what consumers using what application, what end users using what application, which applications are dwelling or being closed or not being utilized. So actual positive feedback from an analytics standpoint on not only the performance of the company, but the performance of the tools that you're putting in the hands of your users. So again, supply chains are transforming their linear supply chain operations into digital supply chains. So look at being more collaborative and connected and do something a little bit more rapid than the traditional supply chains that are out there. Supply chain operations really are being designed around the intersection of suppliers, products, and consumers. If you look at where inventory's got to be co-located and where you're getting it from, the ability to have manufacturing and production capabilities close to the source of distribution, which is close to the location that the consumer is going to be purchasing or receiving the product at, is going to make the supply chain operation a bit more efficient and a bit more capable. Look at investing in that full spectrum of digital technologies for analytics, mobile, and cloud, and then start thinking about some of the hyper-flexible products that are out there, like AI, IoT, and some of the other intelligent products that are available on the market. And then always do a good job of maintaining an awareness of the state of your supply chain within your company. This really isn't just a scenario where set up the network and kind of let it go. Because of that move in purchasing power, because of this ability to change business processes on a daily basis, pretty much everybody in this industry is going to require a need to revise their supply chain practices, probably almost as often as they revise some of their business processes. So with that, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of DSI and some of the things that we've done in this industry in end-to-end supply chain. One of our hallmark customers is a company by the name of Rally House. If you haven't heard of Rally House, they're a 60-plus store retail chain based out of Kansas City, Missouri, that actually does logo apparel for both college and pro teams. And we were able to put a warehousing and distribution application in for them at the beginning that eventually moved all of their inventory stock to their back room. So now, utilizing DSI apps, within their stores, their operators are able to use their own iPhones or Androids or Windows to look into inventory within the stores. Consumers are able to do ship to store or e-commerce order fulfillment right off of the same applications that we've deployed on their device. And at the same time, Rally House has actually closed their distribution center and moved all of their product into the back stock rooms of their retail stores. That's actually a NetSuite ERP customer that we have, and the entire deployment from the time we started the project until it was live only took 90 days. So when you talk about rapid digital transformation, I think it's a great example of that. Another of our customers, Design Imports, spent a significant amount of time developing their own e-commerce strategy and then decided to actually move to utilize Amazon as a source for their marketplace. Small company, didn't mind selling their soul sort of to Amazon to be able to get product out the door, but had heavy compliance needs all of a sudden for shipments. So we developed mobile applications for them that address compliance on a shipment level, as well as aided them in now being able to increase their shipments to outbound Amazon customers by about 400% over what they were doing through their original e-commerce platform. So speed and agility, again, was key to them. Old Dutch, we did a single platform for them that allowed them to monitor all of their warehouse operations and all the way through direct store delivery. So reduce the amount of cycle time within their operations, reduce the amount of cycle time to get product to the store, reduce the amount of product that they had to ship based upon positive feedback from the folks out in the direct store delivery end of the application and exactly what was needed, and basically automated everything from raw materials, receipt, and storage all the way through distribution to the end store for those customers. And then Intertape Polymer Group. Intertape Polymer Group is a company a lot of folks don't know, but we've done business with them with our cloud inventory product. They supply all the glue and prime tape to Amazon, but they had 3 very siloed implementations that didn't share inventory across their entire supply chain. So by giving them an end-to-end visibility strategy, we were able to pull those 3 silos of inventory information: the silo at their manufacturing and distribution facility, the silo within their 3PL's distribution network, and then the silo at Amazon itself to effectively create a pull and demand capability where once product is consumed at the Amazon fulfillment center, we get a positive feedback all the way to the warehouse and distribution end of the world to replenish that product going forward. We're also deep in with a study on a pool company right now. This company manufactures pool chemicals, but this probably is one of the better implementations of a cloud-based strategy that's out there in the marketplace. This particular firm has developed a pool sensor that will actually communicate via the cloud to them the particular chemical makeup of any pool for a customer that they've got, and then that customer can actually look at that particular results of that and water testing data, and through the customer data that's online within the cloud, determine whether they want a pool service to come on out and deliver the chemicals to them through a local company, or if they want to go to their local pool store, pick up the chemicals there. A lot of times these chemicals aren't shipped because they're hazardous and heavy, or at the alternate case, they can find where that product is located, head to the big box retailer, and actually pick that up all while sitting on their hammock having their lemonade. So DSI is a global company. We're about 350 people. About 2/3 of those are here in Kansas City. We're privately held for 38 years with offices in 6 countries. We've got over 1,700 customers in 50 different companies. Are very adept at interfacing our products to all the major ERP packages out there in the marketplace. Have been deemed a challenger for Gartner's Magic Quadrant, actually the 3rd most able company to execute on a mobile application development strategy. We were the first company to actually launch a supply chain app store within the marketplace, and also are the first company to be certified and sitting on the App Source store that Microsoft has out there in the market. But our supply chain app store is a pretty unique product where our customers are able to go out and download up to about 300 different applications from us after having purchased and utilized a development platform that we've placed at their company. So a very strategic operation for us, a great source for our customers to come out, and they need a picking app, they can find a picking app. They need something else, they can go and grab that. And then the product that really has kind of tied this all together for us is our cloud inventory product. Cloud Inventory is a cloud-based inventory management system of record. Utilizes a fairly robust platform of mobile-first apps, a solid track and trace visibility capability and serialization pedigree capability for inventory, integrated again to pretty much all of the major third-party ERP products that are out there in the marketplace, from SAP to Oracle to NetSuite to Infor. We do have an enterprise printing platform that allows you to print pretty much from anywhere within the enterprise, a little bit different than kind of the ones that have always been tied to a specific printer within your organization. And we do have a fairly sizable suite of analytics that I've been talking about before for insights in productivity and process. And based upon that platform, then we're able to bring a significant number of applications out to the market, whether it be areas of field service or direct store delivery, asset management type applications. We do a lot of work in the channel management, so vendor managed inventory consignment type areas, and have a full suite of both manufacturing and warehousing applications that butt up against that product as well too. So with that, I wanted to turn it over to Amanda, and she'll actually go through a little bit of a history of DSI. I'm sorry, of HAND, and what they're all about. So go ahead, Amanda.
Thanks so much, Bob. So hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Pensack, and I am the Marketing Director for HAND USA. And HAND was really impressed with DSI and the digital transformation that they have taken on within their own customer base. So we decided to partner with them here in the U.S. and in our headquarters in Shanghai. Now, HAND Enterprise Solutions, for those of you who don't know, is a leading global software solutions provider working to deliver IT strategies, ERP solution implementations, and global technical support. We leverage our offshore teams from across the world to provide our customers with the most competitive, convenient, and reliable experience. We were founded in 1996 and have over 6,000 global employees. We have around 1,000 global clients and about 10,000 plus successful projects under our belt. Here in the U.S., our headquarters is Milpitas, California, but our global headquarters is in Shanghai, China. And in China, HAND is actually the #1 SAP Platinum partner, while here in the U.S., we're an SAP Silver partner. So moving forward, our global offices, we have headquarters in Shanghai and Milpitas with offices around the world. At HAND USA, you're fully backed by 24/7 global support. And here at HAND, we're an agile team. We have a complete flexibility, autonomy, and most importantly, a mandate to aggressively grow our clients' businesses. We have a first-line local team that's deeply familiar with SAP products and global requirements as well. So moving on, here at HAND, we work with a variety of businesses in various industry verticals. Some of those verticals include manufacturing, e-commerce, wholesale distribution, aerospace and defense, and consumer products. As a Silver SAP partner in the United States, HAND offers our clients several solutions from SAP, including S/4HANA, S/4HANA Cloud, and Hybris. We want to let you know that HAND can help work with your business to help transform your organization with SAP's next generation ERP suite with S/4HANA and S/4HANA Cloud, a cloud-based ERP product that enables and empowers businesses to run ahead by delivering instant value and business results. HAND also offers clients Hybris, addressing customer engagement comprehensively across marketing, sales, service, and e-commerce platforms. In addition to SAP, HAND also offers cloud computing, IoT, big data, business module innovation, and traditional IT application and development capabilities. With HAND Enterprise Solutions, your business is receiving expertise from practices in 2 hemispheres. We tap into the very best onshore and offshore talent and offer traditional IT application and development solutions, business module innovation, cloud computing, and IoT services. This helps to slash costs up to 40%, involve all client-facing high-touch activities that are handled by a dedicated local team. We focus more on innovation and less on the cumbersome IT tasks, We streamline processes for greater productivity, and Hand has access to cutting-edge technology. So for more information on Hand USA, feel free to visit our website at www.hand-usa.com or email us directly at us_sales@hand-usa.com. We'd love to have an initial conversation about how we can help your business and get in touch. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amanda. So a reminder, if anybody has any specific questions, we've got a couple here, but feel free to go ahead and type them into the chat window, and we'll go ahead and answer those. And in the meantime, I'll grab a couple of the ones here and see if I can't give you a succinct answer to that. First one is somebody asked, is blockchain a reality, and what impact does it have on the supply chain? So for those of you who haven't seen blockchain or heard the term yet, blockchain is basically the ability to track a product from its point of inception all the way to the point that it ends up in the consumer hands. So it's been primarily looked at as by banks as kind of a technology. It grew out of Bitcoin, I think, was the actual genesis of blockchain. But the idea is to have this kind of irrefutable pedigree. So you can see this being utilized in pharmaceutical as well too, all the way from the point of product conception to the point that it actually reaches the consumer's hands. When I look at blockchain and I look at what's going on right now, most of what we're seeing out there right now is prototypes, and the prototypes are in a very small segment of the supply chain. Rarely is anybody looking at addressing it on the end-to-end supply chain. So you've got to address it from an end-to-end supply chain standpoint in order for it to truly be able to track product from the point of inception all the way to the point of the consumer's hands, and all the variations and touches that might have happened, and lot changes and whatnot. But we see blockchain in the future, but some of the most recent research that I have read still thinks that about 90% of all blockchain applications or prototypes or implementations, that are going to be in the marketplace come 2020 are still going to be prototypes. So I think having this kind of immutable, serialized source of truth, this kind of one single truth for every product that's out there in the marketplace, has significant applications across everything from automotive manufacturing to being able to look at a retail product and determine whether or not it was manufactured in a sweatshop or something less than desirable. The reality of it is that it's probably going to be a number of years, maybe decades, before you see this blockchain, I think, take hold. However, if you look at what's going on right now, I think most of the hype on blockchain systems and prototypes and implementations is primarily vendor PR. It's not actual utilization of blockchain. So while it's an emerging technology, I don't think it's anything that's going to be kind of a solid portion of our marketplace going forward just this time. And another question I had was, given the hype and failure of supply chain visibility projects like Walmart's RFID mandate, do I think that a lot of the talk on robotics, AI, VR, AR, and the like is just that talk? I don't think so. I think the RFID mandate from Walmart was actually a fairly good idea, if not that was implemented badly. It was a little bit ahead of the technology curve. Things are becoming a little bit more cost effective, and I think you'll see a strategy, especially in retail, of RFID going forward. But I think some of the things like artificial intelligence, whether it be utilized particularly to drive a business process or if it's utilized just to gather data to build business processes, is here to stay. Virtual reality is here to stay. I've seen a number of systems, and you see them more and more at the technology shows where they're utilizing VR, particularly in the warehouse, to give operators sightline direction to inventory that they ought to be picking. There's a number of actually RFID technologies out there right now in the marketplace. That one that I was prototyping not too long ago, that actually now have XYZ coordinates on RFID. So you're not really just looking at kind of a GPS location of where a product is, but you can also determine how far up the rack it might be. So the ability to actually put a RFID chip in a picker's hands would now give you the capability in real time from remote readers to make a determination if that operator actually stuck their hand into the correct location to pick the correct product. Virtual reality, to give them goggles to show exactly what location to go to, is here to stay. And I think robotics is probably the one that there should be no question that it's there. Amazon bought Kiva for a reason. It's a fairly significant strategy for them to be able to take that into their distribution centers and utilize robotics to move product throughout the facility. We've always had quasi-robotic picking in the pharmaceutical world through A-frames or kind of piece-pick robots. I think you're just going to see that enhanced and continue to grow. I don't think there's an end to a lot of the technology advances that are going on right now. And although they're not all going to work, and some of them may fail, I think there's a fairly stable and good offering of new products coming to market that are going to challenge all of us in how we deploy our products and maintain our product base going forward. So I think that's it for the questions. If there's not anything else, I'll turn it back over to Morgan to wrap up.
Great. Thank you, Bob. As Bob said, that's about all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank Bob from DSI and Amanda from Hand USA for presenting during today's webinar, and we'd also like to thank all of you for attending. If there's anything we can help you with, please reach out using the contact information on your screen. The webinar has been recorded, and we'll be sending a link to the recording to everyone who registered. So thanks, everyone, and we hope to see you at future events.